Good afternoon, everyone, and what a fabulous morning we've had so far. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Olga Serbina. I'm in the corporate sales team based right here in Sydney, and it is a thrill to be here, welcoming new and familiar faces to the technical stream component of Sekurokon'24. Now, the people I'll be introducing to you today, I'm very proud to call my colleagues and my peers, all of whom I hold in very high regard. And it's not just for their credentials or their technical capabilities when it comes to the delivery aspect of the work that we do, but also for the unique perspectives they bring to new, existing and emerging challenges that we all face in this weird and wonderful ecosystem of cybersecurity that we all operate in. Now, these sessions are going to be short and sharp, so if there's anything that you're particularly intrigued by, I encourage you to stick around for networking later today, where you can connect with the speakers directly, or feel free to reach out to us at a later date. Now, to kick things off, we've got co-op mode, Defense with an Attacker's Edge, featuring Ash Andrews from our offensive security practice, along with Sammy Chuks from Managed Security Services. Welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for choosing to spend your afternoon with us. I know there's a lot of other cool talks that are happening at the same time, but we appreciate having you here, and hopefully no one falls asleep. I know we've just had lunch, but we're going to try to make this as fun as possible. My name is Sammy Chuks. I am the manager of cybersecurity operations within our MSS division, and my job really is to be the client advocate, and that really means to ensure that our team continue to deliver tactical, operational, and technical value to our clients on a day-to-day basis. And we try to do this from a collaborative mindset with our clients. So I've got, forgot to click that. I've got a few years experience in cybersecurity. First started my career in system administration, IT support, and then moved into offensive security, and now got sick of writing reports and got into blue teaming. You guys can already see that I'm a huge fan of Star Wars, so you'll be seeing quite a few of that reference here.
Hi everyone, I'm Ash, and my microphone doesn't work apparently. So I'm in the offensive security team at Sekuro. So we do things like penetration testing, red teaming. We get to do all the fun stuff while Sammy's got his head buried in logs.
Ooh, first dig.
I started out my career as a systems administrator, so I've built and managed the same sort of networks that I now attack.
Exactly the same ones?
Same type.
Yeah.
So a bit of what we're going to talk to you about today. So Sammy and I are here to talk to you about how attackers and defenders can work together to hone each other's skills, build on it, and then why you should care. We're going to go through some demonstrations of attacks, how they'd be detected, and then how we can tweak those attacks to be stealthier, and then see if they can still be detected.
Cool. All right, to get things off, again, try to decipher the Yoda speak there, but really the key message I want you guys to take away is that quite often organizations are stuck really trying to do cybersecurity from a completely different siloed mindset. And this is quite often where you see infrastructure doing their own thing on their own end, vulnerability management happening on a completely different end, pen testing comes in every now and again, and they do their thing and deliver a report, and the analysts are getting burnt out all the time. So we thought that to actually be able to stay at the bleeding edge of the threat landscape, organizations need to adapt. And to adapt, they need to do something very critical. So do you know that an ostrich buries its head in the sand to protect and keep its egg alive? And as you can also see, therefore, by doing that, by cherishing the one thing that it cares about, it's left itself vulnerable to environmental attacks. So the key thing here really is that organizations need to be really aware that ultimately to be able to be at the bleeding edge of the threat landscape, they need to be looking at things from a multiple end. And this is why attackers and defenders working together is essential to ensuring that there is a robust cybersecurity strategy in place.
So to run through these attacks today and how they'd be detected, we've built a lab. The lab mimics a corporate environment on a smaller scale. So we've got some typical servers down the bottom left. We've got some domain controllers that handle authentication. some other servers. They go out to a logging server in a seam where Sammy's going to do his detections, or maybe not. And then there'll be the attacker on the outside who's going to try and attack the corporate network over the internet. Just as a bit of a disclaimer, we're not going to be revealing any trade secrets here. This is all pretty basic stuff. It's just touching on how we can do it and the process. So if we were running an actual red team, we probably wouldn't be doing the sort of attacks that we're demonstrating today. So the OffSec and MSS teams have a couple of mascots. It all started as a bit of an inside joke in the OffSec team when we used to just blame some guy called Larry for everything. Whenever anyone asked who Larry was, we sent him a picture of a fish. It was just a bit of a silly insider joke. Somehow he became a mascot for us, and then MSS got really upset because we were having too much fun, so they decided they needed a mascot too.
You wish. We're definitely not jealous of you. We've got grand ideas of our own. Wink, wink. But unlike Larry, which is an absolute joke, by the way.
He is a joke.
Our mascot, the good old Rocky the Rooster, is an absolute emblem of resilience for our team, and it's also something that we build our bond around. And this is critical because if you all can think about it, you know how many chicken gets eaten each day around the world, but somehow they remain and they've never gone extinct. So this is why we've chosen this. Also, additionally as well, some of these native chicken, they have some really, really wicked fangs, so they can fight. So we chose this, and it's been something that's been going on really well for us. So moving on, now, as we go through, one of the things you can obviously see that we've got a banter, really lively banter going on with the OffSec team within Sekuro, between MSS and OffSec. So today we're actually going to see who's better at this craft, who's going to be eating for dinner. So show of hands in the audience, who thinks Larry, the OffSec mascot, is going to be hard for dinner tonight? There you go. Like it. That's it. Go, Rocky. That's awesome.
All right. And who thinks that Rocky the Rooster is going to get eaten for dinner? Yeah, that's right. They know what's up.
We shall see about that. All right. So all the Rocky team, please make sure you yell as loud as possible because we are definitely having a toasty, nice chicken fish dinner tonight.
Even Sammy knows what's up.
Oh, watch out, don't get cocky. We're coming for you guys.
So the first attack we're going to demonstrate today is credential access. So we're going to set the scene here for the lab. There's a bit of assumption made at the start. So Larry, he's the attacker. He's on the outside. He's coming over the internet. We're going to assume that he's already breached the corporate environment. He's on the internal network, and he's got admin access. From there, he's going to pull some credentials down, and then he can use them later on to perform attacks, impersonation attacks. He can crack those passwords or just pass the hash straight up. So here, we've got a beacon up on an application server. This happens over HTTPS traffic, which is all encrypted. So at a network level, it just looks like normal web traffic, and it's difficult to detect. So Larry's on the server. He's got administrator control of it, and he's going to perform a DC sync. So a DC sync, it's a legitimate Windows feature, and DCs use it to share credentials between themselves to keep them in sync. So Larry's going to do something that they'd normally do. He's going to mimic them. He's going to do a DC sync, and that's going to pull down user credentials. So those user credentials are in hash format, which is how we'd expect to see them stored. So Sammy, do you reckon Rocky will be able to detect that?
You bet he will. Rocky is good at his craft. So for this type of lazy attack, one of the things to note is that Larry has decided to do a DC sync from a non-domain controller, which is a bit of a rookie move. Because usually DC sync happens between domains. So because he's done it from one of the app servers, we can totally see this light up. So because of that, we can look for instances where DC sync is being done from a non-domain account. Additionally as well, we can look at key artifacts. So one of the things to look out for is that every DC sync should definitely happen with a computer account, which is denoted by the $ at the end of it. And he's done this with an administrative account, which is a normal user account. So another telltale sign that Larry is an absolute rookie. Also, you can also see here that access mask is set to 0x100, which tells us that this is a privileged access permission action. And there's a few other things there as well. So to detect this, we could be looking at event ID 4662 to see what sort of activity is happening over the network, and then essentially block it. So Larry is hard for what? Dinner. So what more do you have up your sleeve, Ash?
I don't have anything, but Larry's got something. So taking all that on board, Larry's going to tweak things, do it a bit differently. Instead of running it from the application server and the administrator account, he's going to pivot to one of the domain controllers because they're the ones that perform the legitimate function. From there, he's also going to use the machine account. Again, it's what we'd expect to see, and he's going to perform the same attack. Just before we move on, I just want to point out something. So Rocky actually set up this environment. If anyone can see his really, really bad password practices, come find me at the bar after, tell me what it is, and I'll order you a drink on the bar tab.
All right.
So, Sammy, how would Rocky detect this?
Well, guys, you can see they've gone down the bribe pathway, but we like to stay true to ourselves. So you can see he's got a bit nifty and a bit stealthier. So for this particular attack, there's actually something we can do. And unfortunately, it's really hard to detect this from the endpoint level, so we need to look elsewhere. And one of the best strategies to detect against normal behaving or suspicious DC sync attacks that are within the normal behaving two domain controllers is to look for out-of-band DC sync activities. So usually, administrators would set DC sync to happen at a certain time of the day, so we could look for where there is an out-of-band activity in that same sort of activity. Additionally, this is really good to be detected from an NDR or a network level, so having an IDS, IPS device would be able to pick this up. And obviously as well, having some sort of a UBI type device that's looking at the actual known behavior of the environment over time and then seeing a deviation from that. So look, you were nifty, but we still got you. So what more can you do, Larry?
All right, so Larry's going to move on to a different type of attack. We got any wrestling fans in here? So what Larry's going to do, and this can apply to any sort of attack, we just want to mask our activity. We just don't want it showing up in the logs regardless of what we do. So this is a similar scene. Larry's got a beacon up on a server, which he's controlling. So to prevent any attacks hitting the logs, he's just going to disable the logging service. That way, anything that he runs after that, it just won't show up in the logs. So he issues the command here, set the event logging service to disabled, then he does his attacks. So Sammy, if the event logging service is disabled, how's Rocky going to detect it?
Good old Larry, always trying to make my life a living hell. No, not to worry. We've got our team of Rockies. You may notice I said team because we are everywhere. So to detect against this type of attack, there are multiple avenues. So usually, when event logs, thankfully for Windows environment, when event log is disabled on the system, before the actual process itself, which is winEvent.exe, before that service dies, it actually sends a message, a beacon, to the login server to say, hey, I've been shut down. So that last-ditch effort of it putting its hand up saying I'm going down could be something that we could potentially use to detect this. So that's one really good telltale sign. Additionally, obviously, there's other things that we can do as well, but I'm pretty sure Larry and his team can be a little bit more stealthier. There's always something you're planning. So what can you do to make this a bit more interesting for us? Because so far, you've been playing a poor man's game.
Yep. So Larry's playing easy mode for Rocky, getting him warmed up, and now he's going to play properly. So from what we learned, what Sammy just said, there was two key things in that previous one that got picked up. One was the command that was issued, and second was the actual logging service went down. And before it went down, it issued a log. So to get around that, we're just going to leave the logging service up. We don't care. Let it run. Sweet. We're going to run our attacks, but after we run our attacks, we're then going to clear the logs. So when the logs go up to the seam, because it's still running, they're just empty, or they don't have the militia tags in them. So this way, we're going to do things a bit differently. We're going to use PowerShell to just clear the event logs straight after the attacks. That way, Rocky probably won't be able to detect it.
Well, that's another really clever move. Well, for this one, actually, I'm going to digress here and talk about how this is a big problem for a lot of organizations because the logs doesn't actually completely stop out of the endpoint. If you noticed, Larry only disabled Windows security logs, so which means application and system logs are still coming in, and this would not trigger the run of the park basic detection implies that's looking for when logs are not coming in from an endpoint. So to detect this, we are looking at essentially having multiple points of data telemetry coming into the SIEM. So in this case, thankfully, we had PowerShell also running on this endpoint as well, which is pulling logs and commands that have been executed on this endpoint. Additionally, one of the things we also enabled in this lab environment is Sysmon. So you can see by having multiple points of data collection, whatever Larry and his team does, he can kill one process. While he's doing it, we are going to be able to pick it up from a completely different angle. So essentially, being aware of the multiple points that Larry and his team can try to make alive, or give us sleepless night and make our life a living hell. Additionally as well, obviously, one of the key things to note here is that when you do have, or something to consider, when you do have multiple agents installed in your live environment, that obviously costs resources. So you have to play the game of checks and balance. But yeah, Larry, look, it seems so far I've been owning you guys.
Yeah,
So,
I don't know about that. I think that's just because we've been working together, right?
that's good.
All right, so we're going to move on to a third attack. This is data exfiltration. So again, Larry's inside Rocky's environment. He's found some Linux ISOs. He wants to smuggle them out. So yeah, let's show them how it's done. Again, he's got his beacon up. So this beacon, as I said earlier, it's running over HTTPS, so it's encrypted web traffic essentially at the packet level. He's going to issue a command after he's found the Linux ISOs. And he's just going to upload those Linux ISOs directly to a website using PowerShell. When he does it this way, it's also over HTTPS traffic, which is encrypted. So when Sammy's looking at it, it just looks like normal web traffic. So Sammy, how was Rocky going to detect this one?
This is an interesting one. And one of the key points to take away from what Ash said is that this traffic would appear like normal traffic, and we wouldn't be able to decrypt it or to see what the content is. But this is where endpoint telemetry is really essential, because before the logs leave the actual endpoint, it is still unencrypted. So we can pick this up using PowerShell command line block login, and we can obviously see that one of the key things to look for, because PowerShell can be quite noisy in an enterprise environment, is to look for instances where a command is being encoded. And you can also see that there is execution bypass, which is happening here, which is essentially telling PowerShell to run with a bit more administrative privilege. And then we can look for this thing to see what Larry and his team have been up to. So this is one really good way to look at it. And when you decrypt this base64 encoded string here, maybe put that on CyberChef, or you can even just use the PowerShell get file hash command and assign in an algorithm, and you should be able to get what the actual raw string is. So this is one really good way to pick this sort of activity up.
So Larry's going to do it a bit stealthier this time with all that on board. So Larry's still got his beacon up. It's running over HTTPS traffic, encrypted. Instead of issuing a command to upload the files to a website, he's literally just going to pull it down over that channel he's already got. So he issues the command here, which is through the beacon. It's not actually issuing a command direct on the system, so it won't create an event log. The traffic will still come down over the encrypted channel. Sammy, there's no way Rocky's going to know what this one is.
All right, look, before you bury me alive, show of hand who still think that Rocky is definitely going to win this game, and Larry is definitely the guy who's going to be eating for dinner. There you go. My Rocky team are still here. All right, for this one, well, Larry and his team definitely did get us here, but not completely, because one of the things that he forgot to do is to ensure that he's slightly obfuscated the beacon that is communicating out of the network. So this beacon communicates at an interval, which enables us to observe a pattern. And also because we've seen other activities that Larry and his team have done, we can easily conclude that there is traffic going out of the network, and obviously with a bit of threat intelligence gathering, we can obviously identify that this traffic is going through over the network with evil Larry traffic going through, and we can obviously use that to identify what's happening. So that's one key way to pick this up. Additionally, what you can do as well is to have a proxy server in an enterprise environment that is decrypting every single HTTPS traffic. Obviously, that comes with the downside of having to have the security of your packet compromised if someone is able to get into that proxy server. But that's one really cool way to be able to pick this sort of attack up. I forgot to flick through the last slide. So another thing obviously you can do is using EDR as well. So this is the channel that I was referring to. And then we can see that this is actually coming from this public IP address. So this is where we can perform additional threat intelligence. And then we can see that the network connection was detected using Sysmon. Now, just to round things up a little bit, ultimately, defense with an attacker's edge is really making sure that teams are collaboratively working together, both from the offensive and the defensive team, to ensure that collectively the capability is being improved and one team is making each other better, right? By working with the OffSec team, our team are able to better understand what adversaries are doing in an enterprise environment or out there, and then that better equips us to protect our clients' organization and ensure that we are ready for the threat of the next generation threat and what's going to come up next.
So on top of all that, so while Larry's training Rocky basically on how to do his job, the flip side of that is Larry's also learning what things usually get detected, so Larry can be better at his job too. He's on the ball with what's getting detected, and he's just constantly tweaking his attacks like we would in a normal red team.
So here's the review, guys.
Vegetarian for dinner.
No one is getting eaten because Larry and Rocky are bros for life. Because we work together and ultimately we want to make each other better, which is the whole essence of this. So definitely something to take away from this, which is organizations need to ensure that the different capabilities that are within their environment are ultimately working together to ensure that a better security posture is maintained. So with that, we will round up to a Q&A section. So if anyone wants to ask Team Larry some questions about some of the attacks that they performed.
Easy questions only, please.
Or the Team Rocky some questions, we'll be more than happy to take it.
How can you reduce the network traffic to make sure it doesn't detect it?
So when you're pulling the files down through your beacon over HTTPS, you generally just slow it right down. So if you're pulling down a large amount of data, you do it over a longer period of time. You might even do it after hours when Rocky's gone to sleep. He apparently works 24 hours, but I don't think he does.
We are 24/7, my friend.
There's always ways.
Good. Does anyone else have any other questions in the audience? Right, I think that's pretty much it. Look, thank you so much, everyone, for coming to join us. You can connect with either myself or Ash on LinkedIn by essentially scanning the QR code there. That's Ash's over there. So, Ash, do you have any final words to add?
I promise at least one of them is not malware. I won't tell you which one. But yeah, find us on LinkedIn. Find us at the bar. I'll have Larry on my back because he's always got my back.
Oh.
That's
You
one
guys
thing
can see this.
MSS are always jealous of. So we've got the shirt.
Thanks so much.
That's your shirt.